Hello everybody, it's Robert Dunt from ArtTop10.com and I'm very excited today to be doing a studio interview with Judith Tucker. Hello Judith.
Hello, very nice to see you. We're very excited
nice to see you. And I think we're doing something quite exciting this morning, aren't we? We're going to go for a sort of wild poetry collaboration with Harriet Tarlo.
Hello.
Hello Harriet. Do you want to give us a little explanation before you launch in, or are you just going to go straight for the verse?
Judy and I have been working together since 2011, and I'm reading from the Fitties series, which is behind me, that Judy will be talking about later, and I'm just going to read a couple of very short poems just to give you a sense of place. Front and back. Front or back, where to post or enter, each avenue tapering to track to pathway, stops at sand or bungalow blank. Fox in window, pigeons loud at gate, cars lumber edges, midges flicker floaters in and out of empty plots, imagined chalets. Each age its imposition accumulates, pulls down, adds on, bricks, windmills, arguments. They lifted it up and put it down the wrong way round. Don't you see? The front should be at the back. Do not park on the grass verge. I do everything myself living by the sea, like playing outdoor house. I came for a bit and stayed 10 years. I just always wanted to be on the coast. I don't like being stuck in. I can't imagine not having it. My wife died. I drink too much. It was a project. By the sea, all worries wash away. It was the only way to stay close to him, we thought. We needed to be near the sea, never expected to stay all these years. I can put colours in I never would at home. It's the love of my life, really. Welcome. Keep away.
I popped up again now.
Fantastic. I love the popping up at the end. Was the poem inspired by the pictures, or how does it work?
Well, we work together collaboratively, basically. We have done for a long time. So we work on little kind of.
So we work together in response to place.
Yeah.
So these are some of my sketchbooks.
Oh, that's so cool. I'll let me see that again. Can I see it? That is really cool. So does the landscape actually go along in that sort of?
In this place, yes, it does, and you'll see in those ones that there's some of Harriet's words made on location. Wow. So we work together on location, and this particular landscape is on the east coast in northeast Lincolnshire. It is a long, thin landscape, and we end up sometimes these paintings are not long thin, as you can see, but I have done long thin paintings, and this is an artist book where we've put together, say, one of my paintings with one of Harriet's poems, and it works all the way along like this. And we started working in northeast Lincolnshire because we were very lucky and had an Arts Council commission by an artist curator called Linda Ingham, and that's how we started there. But we couldn't stop. And so we've ended up carrying on working with some commissions, some exhibitions, and things like this together. And sometimes in exhibition, we put Harriet's poems in vinyl or around the paintings. And other times, like in the books, they also operate separately. So this is one of Harriet's books,
cool,
which mainly just her poems, but every so often you get one of my drawings.
One of the pictures.
So the work doesn't have to go together, but it works.
So it's symbiotic, basically. One feeds into the other. So I don't write them to describe the paintings. Judy doesn't do the paintings to illustrate the poems.
Oh, nice.
So it's a long process. But anyway, I will leave you to it because it's Judy you want to talk to. But that was just to give you a bit of flavour and context. And that second piece is all things people said, basically, that I interviewed. So that's all found text. The second poem.
Found text. Oh, that's quite interesting as well.
So when it says "Don't park on the grass verge," which is also the title of this painting here.
Okay.
that's one of the signs you see in this chalet park, which is the Humberston Fitties in North East Lincolnshire, which I'll tell you about more. Okay. And we've also interviewed a lot of people that own the chalets, that live there, that were passing by. We've done lots of work, which is sort of, well, we've been working with these people since 2013, and this is one of the latest series, but we've done all kinds of things. So it's a combination of, we collaborate, but we also collaborate with the place and with the people that live there.
Oh, nice, I like it. Have you ever exhibited those little sketchbooks and the little sketch poems just above and below each other as a long line?
We have actually, yeah, in cabinets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we put up, you know, like the paintings and poems in exhibition, and then we've got the working towards work, photographs, drawings, with. Yeah,
that's really cool. That's really nice.
You to talk about painting.
Well, I think it's more interesting to talk about poetry. But if I'm here, is that working well?
Yeah, that's good. So go for it. Tell me what inspires you. Is this landscape, this interaction with the people there?
Yes, it's very much that. As you were just hearing, I've worked from landscape probably for more than 30 years, you know, really since I left art school. Okay. But when I say landscape, that can mean all kinds of different things. Yeah. As you know, it doesn't mean a straightforward view. It's about engaging in all kinds of ways. And so landscape, place and environment. And we both are very interested also in working with the local and through the local, thinking about how that can expand out to larger issues. Okay. So that kind of environmental idea of really looking into something closely. And so this chalet park, which is a very small area of land between Cleethorpes and Tetney on the northeast coast of Lincolnshire, is where the vast body of work I'm currently working on is. Okay,
very cool. And so just looking at them very brief, they look quite dark. Are they meant to be kind of, but not dark in a miserable way, dark in a sort of, how would you describe it?
Well, I think I'd say, should I bring one nearer to the camera?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I'll bring this one, which is quite a kind of, see if it works.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's cool.
And obviously there's some light catching on it. But yeah, so this series is actually called Night Fitties, and the Fitties means salt marsh, and it's also the name of this place, which is one of the Plotlands. Yes, so I was really interested in it at dusk, just at that moment where there's a sort of tension between daylight and night, and where the chalets are transforming almost from the very jolly, relaxed atmosphere into just something that's a little bit more edgy. I'm thinking about what the meaning of something like the flags might be.
Oh yeah.
So I'm thinking about notions of the uncanny, of what Englishness, what Britishness might be in terms of that kind of thing, and then also looking at the kind of very, the way people have used lighting and so on to make that. So it's that moment of transformation I think I'm interested in.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. So it's like transforming. Sort of, is it? Yeah. What do you feel? Is it a mystical transformation? How do you feel?
I don't think I'd say mystical. Maybe more. So I'm just making sure it doesn't drop on me as I hook it back on. Sorry. I think maybe just so that it's nothing is quite what it seems, which is true of everything. And this idea of how light and atmosphere, which is something you can really, I think, use paint for, rather than necessarily, I'm doing this because that's what you do when you're painting. But this idea of touch, the relationship. So otherwise, obviously, one can photograph these. They're amazing because this is why we got so intrigued by it was, it's the same kind of tension that you have on all coastlines, particularly in Britain, which is between areas of pleasure and then areas which have been used maybe for lookouts, warfare, because they're all key areas. So this, obviously, as with the rest of the UK coast, there are little pillboxes, and then people holidayed there. And I love resorts. I love holiday resorts. I love the tension between the idea of people going there to relax, which you heard in Harriet's poems, people saying, you know, I only come here when the weather's good. That's the title of another one of these paintings. So I take a quote from one of Harriet's poems, which is also actually a quote from one of the chalet owners, so that even in the paintings for a viewer, you know that they are uninhabited, but there's a voice there. And I sort of feel at the moment in this sort of lockdown period, the idea of these, that they kind of work quite well because you've got cozy things going on inside. But this, sorry, just go quickly back, this idea, this place is what, I don't know if you know about them, but they're called Plotlands.
Okay, let me just move you to your right. Can I move you to your right a little bit? That's it. I just don't want you to drift off the screen. That's it.
Can you hear me from here okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't feel quite so self-consciously near the camera.
And you get to see more of my studio.
Yeah.
So Plotlands are these parts of the coast, and they were all over Britain, but especially between the wars, where working class people could go and self-build.
Okay.
And they were amazing. And the most well-known one, which has now got a kind of different sort of reputation, they're in Essex, is Jaywick.
Okay.
But this one is one of the few remaining Plotlands left. And it's got amazing kind of vernacular architecture, and people are still there doing a lot of the things they're going to be doing. And there's a very huge range of people that have them, but they all represent a sort of longing, a kind of wanting to be with nature, but also being away from the world of work. And here there's people that have got them that are maybe ex-miners.
Okay.
There's people here that have also maybe got them who are now got really quite well off and just love this idea of this chalet by the sea. And the name, they've all got these amazing names, and Harriet's used those to make poems. So I just, you know, so they're kind of showing how much it's about. So they call things like Uncle John's Cabin, Cotton Heights, Pete's Joy, Cockleshell, and they change the names every time they change owner.
It's quite amazing. So you could come and build what anything you wanted there.
Until the planning regulations came in, yes, you could. People used to do that. They would do, and lots of these are still, you know, bits of old wartime buildings, buses, railway carriages, and so on. It was called camp for a bit because people would just come and camp there. People would go there for the whole summer, maybe just relatively locally, say from Grimsby. They would come and live there for the summer and live on Samphire and so on and do that. And they were all the way up the coast. Then planning regulations came in and after the war, and that pretty much put pay to farmers selling off the land cheaply. And that was the end of it. And most of them were erased. And there's some memories of them sort of left in Langdon in Essex, where there's one chalet left and then the rest has been rewilded. So that's quite an interesting thing. But mostly they've just been knocked down. But there's just these pockets left, and this is one.
I mean, it's quite a strange thing. So the pictures are picking up this strange sort of history of the landscape in a way, are they?
In a way, yeah. And I mean, but also this idea of trying not to make them nostalgic. I mean, I've done some jolly ones too. These are just the others. And then nearby, there's these amazing marshes, which I'm now focusing in. I'll just quickly show you a couple of these to the camera. I'm now focusing in. These are called on the Marsh Plants. Don't know if you can see this. These are smaller. And the idea is that these paintings, that was Samphire painted in winter. So it goes red in the winter. Okay. And this one is sea lavender. Okay. And the idea is that you kind of relate. So you might have, this is just a very rigid show, but you might make these hang together. Okay. In a much more playful way. And the idea of thinking about the relationship between these salt marsh plants and salt marshes. Both protect the land from flooding, but obviously are also completely vulnerable to sea level rise.
Yeah, of course.
So, and these, because of the history of these plotlands, they're often in places that are either on the edges of cliffs or liable to flood, perhaps, or just maybe not the kind of safest land. It's not necessarily going to happen, but this idea of thinking about that. And these chalets seem to have always become a little bit of a leitmotif of maybe the Anthropocene, the kind of environmental danger. So there's other artists who are using them. There's a filmmaker called Esther Johnson who's done this amazing set of films about a set of them a bit further up the coast. And a painter called Julian Perry, who actually does a whole series of works about them in Norfolk, well, not necessarily in the chalets, but also bungalows in Norfolk. So it's kind of like I just found those artists out after I started working here. It's like So go on, sorry.
No, it's interesting. So there's quite a lot of, as you say, you've got that sort of historical feel of the landscape. You've got that also that sort of impermanence, and then I can see why when the sun goes down, you go to this edgy sort of, and it picks up what does it do? Does it pick out the sort of hidden narrative in the landscape, that sunset moment?
I like to think that's true. Yeah, so it's wonderful that you can even see that through a video conference. But yeah, the idea of just changing something around slightly. Yes, yeah, and then putting them with the plants too.
It does have a weird kind of lockdown vibe to it as well. I can't quite think why, but it's got that sort of strangeness to it, hasn't it?
I think, well, I don't ever put anybody, even when it's actually quite crowded in the summer, I never actually put the people in.
Oh yeah.
And I think that a lot of these were actually done relatively late in November or December, a lot of the original work. And a lot of people are just in them at night. And so the one on the left, you can see here, that's a television screen, and they were actually watching Grand Designs.
Oh, really?
And that really fitted well with this idea of making your own environment. So
that's quite cool.
I think that's why they fit a bit in with this feeling of lockdown, in that you're walking past somebody's house, peeking in a little bit maybe, and it feels a little bit, they've got fences, everyone's sort of fenced off, I feel that too. Yeah, that's good. And also I was thinking about the tradition of landscape painting, which they're kind of, the chalets both stand in for, but also displace the kind of romantic figure in the landscape. So instead of Caspar David Friedrich's figure, sort of playing with the idea of using the chalet or the flag as this sort of thing.
They're quite, I don't know if you'd say, but it's interesting. They're landscape paintings, but they're quite close up on you. They're quite claustrophobic in a way.
Yes, these ones are. And I'm also maybe getting you to think about, if you were to turn away from them, you would see then this flat horizon, and it's the Humber Estuary actually. It's sand dunes and the flat horizon. So they are thinking about issues of landscape, but maybe not landscape paintings. I don't know. I think that's a mode. So
I think it is quite interesting because the landscape painting, you'd probably think of like a huge view out across a sea or a huge view across something, but instead they're darker, they're slightly tighter. They allude to what the people have gone there to see, but you can't actually see what it is they're looking at.
Yeah, so exactly. And so they're sort of playing with the idea of maybe almost upsetting that idea of the view, because if you look at a view, you're kind of taking some sort of ownership of it with your eyes. That's certainly one thing people think about. If you're inside the landscape somehow, viewing it from the landscape's point of view, which is kind of what I'm trying to play with, which is that it's almost as if the landscape is looking at the people.
Oh, okay, that's a nice idea.
So and the same with the plants. So the viewpoint is being played with in terms of the traditional landscape view. So it's as if I'm playing with that, because you can never really be a landscape, but I'm imagining it when I'm working, that I'm looking back at what people are doing there.
No, I really like the idea that it's the landscape that's looking.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, that's obviously a conceit, but it's fun and it makes.
Yes, but it's quite interesting because what is the landscape thinking about what it looks at?
exactly, and the idea that it's playing same with the plant paintings, that you're so close in, and actually. I mean, I do draw on location, as you've seen, but I also photograph because I'm also interested in that relation between how we view things in paint and how we view things in photography. And it's very tough now, because right now I can't visit, because we go regularly. A lot of the work seasonal, particularly this plant work. So I'm having to ask friends of mine who own chalets there, or who are visiting, just checking out their chalets. They can't stay there at the moment. But I'm saying, would you mind photographing this for me? Would you? And I'm having to and that feels quite strange, because I'm very interested in the embodied approach to both painting and thinking, and I can't do that. So that's been quite tricky.
But that's actually quite interesting, because if the ones of the chalets are the landscape looking, and then ones of the samphire are like you looking.
Yes.
But now it's not you looking; it's somebody else looking. It's quite an interesting, because often you can talk about how people might write a poem, or even because I always remember Kingsley Amis. He always wrote all his books for Peter Larkin.
Yes.
And in a way, because he knew he'd like them, he'd laugh, and he said it's really important to have somebody you're writing things for. And so it's interesting that in a way you're flipping that. You're not kind of quite painting it for, you're almost flipping the idea of it's who is looking at that image.
Yes, exactly. And the idea, I mean, another thing that I enjoy thinking about, and Harriet does as well, is the idea that although we are all part of our environment and so on, that there are other things there that have got their own viewpoints as well. So I don't include animals, because that would be really hard to do without being but I would love to, but I can't. But Harriet might put some bird noises so into her poems, which if we happen to put those together, you would then kind of think about the bird noises going through, or the kind of sounds of a fox. One of her poems is about, we once passed one of these empty chalets, it was in the off season, and there was a fox curled up asleep inside. Somehow it had got into somebody's veranda. So that idea of nature, this is all right on the edges of a bit of society, on the edges of the land, but on the edges also of that juxtaposition of trying to live with nature.
It's interesting. So would you say there is, and I'm just quite obsessed now by that thing about audience, would you say there's a certain kind of person you're painting them for, or?
Well, that's really interesting, because I think the first person, I suppose if I'm really honest, the first person that I paint for is myself, in a way, because we're always our own first viewer of the work. And then I think, I often think about whose chalet it is and what the people who live there would think. And we've got a Facebook page which a lot of people who live there follow, which is called Project Fitties. And so I really often, I feel always a bit nervous when I'm doing it, but I put them up there and see what reaction I get from them. Because I think if they like them, even if they're disturbing a little bit, if they like them, I feel confident about that. So I think but then I'm really interested in showing this work away from the area, because I think there's a lot of voices there, both in the poems and the paintings, of people that haven't been listened to properly. And I'm trying to listen to the landscape, and I'm trying to listen to them. And if a little bit of what my listening can do can maybe communicate with an audience that isn't in North East Lincolnshire, which, you know, is actually a really good, cool place. But say when they've been shown in London, there's been a different reaction. When they've been shown, one of them went to China.
Oh, wow.
and I talked all about the holiday part there. And I don't know how much quite got through there, because I think the idea of an old abandoned place, or not old, but a kind of more nostalgic place wasn't so, but it was interesting. And then they told me all about certain holiday resorts for them. So there is some kind of overlap. So I think that literally starts from the first audience being me, making sure I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
The second audience very much being the people whose place I think it is. And then we go from there.
Yeah, it's interesting actually talking about that sort of Japanese Chinese thing, because a lot of that Japanese thing, the buildings in Japan are kind of designed so when you look out of the windows, you're almost looking at a picture.
Yes.
You think so? It's set up so that everything through a window is kind of like a perfect picture. But then you've flipped that view again.
Yeah.
You're looking into the windows, like into the person watching the TV. So again, you've got a change of audience or view or
yeah, exactly. And I find that's really interesting, this idea of how close we might allow ourselves to be to the landscape, to nature, to the environment, or something that, if we leave, or we could say it more metaphorically, how do we have to distance ourselves from things we're frightened of, or that could be scary, or that could be both nice and scary, you know. So there's all kinds of ways I like. It's fun to think. It's fun as well as quite serious, but I also like to play with what you can see and what you can't see in any way. It's always key, you know. So you can see this, you can't see that. Yeah. And that's a metaphor for ourselves as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So, just as a slightly more bizarre thing, do you want to show us your your paints and your brushes and stuff? Because we love looking at those things.
I'll bring them to you, maybe. Well, they're quite messy, but I'll bring them to you. I've got lots. I've got actually another whole table of them.
Oh, wow.
Do
you want to take us on a little tour? Do you think it's safe to move the laptop around?
I'll take you on a little tour. They're a bit messy, but I'll show you all kinds of things. So here, oops. Are you all right? Can you see?
Yeah, perfect.
So I used some very. Yeah. These are my Harding ones, which I really, really like. Then I use a lot of maybe in between ones for larger areas like Pebble or Lucas.
Okay. Yeah. Because Michael Harding one, they're great paints. They're just so expensive, aren't they?
They're so expensive. But you can see they're the smaller tubes on the whole.
Absolutely.
And then, some rather disgracefully kept brushes. And I also used quite a lot of iridescent pigment.
Oh, right. Interesting.
Actually, I've got quite a few. I was taking you round.
Oh, that's a second. Because, what was it?
There's a shelf of them there on my trolley.
Oh, man. Iridescent pigments. That's quite interesting, actually.
And the idea of that, sort of, maybe if I show you where that, say on this one.
With those iridescent pigments, do you just stick them straight on the canvas? Do you mix them up?
I mix them in with a paint medium. Can you see in this painting? Maybe you can see some shine. I don't know if
I could see the shine. I didn't realise it was the iridescent paint. It's interesting.
And the idea of that is it builds on how we might remember things. So all paintings are really difficult to photograph, as you know.
Yeah.
Even harder because they've got these layers where sometimes you can see through them and sometimes you can't, a bit like memory. So, I mean, some of them have got more of it than others.
Yeah, no, I can see actually they've got that.
I also just like glitter. I mean, there's a kind of...
It doesn't.
That's exactly. And then I've got another, thing is, I'm very anxious about, not running out of materials.
Yeah.
You can also see my canvases.
Yeah, I like that.
Before lockdown, I had a bit of a panic and ordered in case it all, went ordered.
Well, laugh. My mother was trying to get hold of just some titanium white, and she just can't get it.
Yeah, it's really hard. I put you back on the.
I put me back on the doodah. Very nice.
Oh yeah, because I was worried. But yes, and I'm very. I mean, I love materials. I think.
Yeah.
I love layers. I work quite traditionally with building up layers with glazes.
Okay.
But playing with that, again, it's the same thing with playing with the tradition. So I love lead tin yellow, which is an old-fashioned colour.
What's that? I haven't heard of that, actually. What's it called? It's called
lead tin yellow.
Oh, lead tin yellow. God, that's not the kind of thing that Van Gogh used to eat, is it?
It probably is. It's what Rembrandt certainly ate it. And it makes a really nice undercoat for light, for when you're glazing over lights.
Okay.
So this idea of building the image up sort of synchronously.
Yeah.
I do change the compositions a bit, but I kind of start off with roughly what I'm going to be doing, and then build up layers and playing with ideas of shimmer, haze, and yeah, that's the fun part.
That's the fun part. And what medium do you use for the glazing?
Well, I use a mixture. I mean, I use liquid quite a lot. But I also make my own very simple one with Damar varnish, stand oil, and the normal. I don't use anything fancy. So it's a combination of the made one with the Damar, but that can be a bit glossy, and then liquid. And I do actually usually finish off with a matte varnish of some sort. So I mean, you can probably see on the one on my easel, it's very muddled up surface at the moment, which I wouldn't want. That I do try to sort of make it a bit more unified at the end. And there's a couple on here that aren't finished, so that one's not finished. You can probably see that more of a shine in parts than others, which I wouldn't want. So I do tend to finish with a matte varnish. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, the one on the easel, you can see it's a bit more glossy in patches.
Yeah, and I mean that will go when it's complete. You're not seeing that one because I'm struggling with that at the moment. it's causing me a problem, and I'm going to be working on it this afternoon.
And when you mix up the Damar varnish and stand oil one, do you use a dryer in that, or do you just go for
Yes, I do actually. I use a cobalt cicative.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really standard mixture.
I mean, I use that for just normal painting. Well, not with the stand oil, but just Damar varnish, terps and linseed oil and the cicative, just for normal.
Just exactly, it's just a normal. Yeah, I use that one, and then liquid as well to sometimes speeds the drying up a bit more if you're impatient, which can happen. So it's interesting.
No, I use that, and then I sometimes use liquid or Jackson's fast drying oil painting.
Yes. I've used that as well. That's really good. I love it. Yeah. And also trying to play. I mean, I'm in a way, in terms of colouring these, I think I'm using yellow as my main colour, and I think yellow is a really difficult colour to paint with, and it's something that at last I feel I'm beginning to get to grips with how to use yellow. It takes 30 years now to make yellow. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. So
that's interesting, because I thought Van Gogh said yellow was the colour of hope, didn't he?
Yes, it's. I think I find it a hard colour. It's nearly as hard as green. I haven't quite worked out green.
Yeah, no, some people can't bear green, can they? But...
Yeah, I mean, I do like green, but... Yeah.
Anyway, I've really enjoyed chatting. Is there anything else you just want to say about your work before we go?
I think I feel I've covered quite a lot today, actually, and thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's lovely, and I hope I've done the residents of the Fitties, the Chalets, justice. That's my only anxiety. Sure, always is my anxiety, because no doubt some of them will be looking at it. So hello, George. Hello, everybody at the Fitties. and I hope everyone there is safe. So,
Okay, lovely, Judith. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bumbuckler.